Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And welcome to the Main Street Cinema, the show where we discuss the finer points of filmmaking. Oh boy, Dragon. So, folks, you know, Dragon, you had Deadpool, right? Deadpool was your event movie of last year. And man, oh man, that was something for you.
Yes. One of the most beautiful moments of my life, I tell you. It was so wonderful and validating.
So, Dragon, I've loved The Room for a long time, just to get into our initial thoughts about this movie, and then we'll get into some background and all that, work our conversation full circle. But just to get where we're coming from, Dragon, you are a curious onlooker of this movie, right?
Yes, I am.
All right, so I am, it took me a while to get into The Room. It took me a while. We'll get into exactly what our experiences are with The Room, but once I did, Dragon, once I discovered the magic, once I was a convert. You know, I was one of those people who would watch The Room, study it, like show it to as many people as I could. Unfortunately, I've never been able to catch a screening of The Room, but, I love it. So I had razor high expectations of this movie, especially because in 2013, Dragon, I actually read The Disaster Artist. It was like a Christmas gift. I remember that was like one of my most anticipated Christmas gifts was that book. And Dragon, I just remember thinking when I was reading that book that this would make for such a cinematic movie. There's so many beats in this story, so many so many different themes that this movie could hold its flag to. And Dragon, for that reason, basically the mix of me loving The Room and then the mix of like this incredibly fascinating true story that goes behind The Room, this has been my most anticipated movie basically since it got announced. So this movie was originally supposed to come out in 2016. It was my most anticipated movie of 2016. And, finally came out 2017. It was my most anticipated movie of 2017. And Dragon, I gotta say, I did get the chance to see this a second time last night, so I'm definitely coming at it from a more critical eye. My thoughts on the movie overall, I think James Franco absolutely disappears into the role. I think James Franco does an impeccable job. The whole movie more or less kind of hinges on James Franco. Having said that, Dragon, unfortunately, I don't know. There's parts of this movie, especially on the rewatch, that kind of weak sauce for me. And it might be one of those things like the comparison between the book and the movie. That's, this conversation is going to be kind of hinged on that a little bit. Because Dragon, you're kind of like the curious onlooker, so you don't necessarily know the changes that were made to the story. But Dragon, let's just say when I rewatched this movie, basically the first time I watched this movie, it was like this surreal experience, right? Because I was just so blown away that Franco was just so transformed into Wiseau, and just every second he was on screen, which is most of the movie, I was just like, oh my God, he's capturing it so well, right? Like the first watch of this movie was all about the performance, all about just taking in the performance. Unfortunately, Dragon, I just wish the movie around the performance were a little bit better because, I don't know. It's not that the movie's bad at all. I think this is a very, it's a very good movie. It's definitely anchored by Franco, but I just think there's a little something lacking in it. I just think, basically, I think if the movie would have followed some of the themes of the book that the movie just touches on, it hints at, but doesn't really put any effort into exploring. That was kind of my problem, was that this was essentially like, it wasn't even Spark Notes, because even Spark Notes explains the symbols and themes. Like, for example, Dragon, I'm just going to give you an example and I'll expand on it, but Tommy's Planet. You remember Tommy's Planet from the movie?
Yes, I do. It was a cute little knick-knack on a pen.
Yes. Cute little moment, right?
Yeah.
Never shows up again.
That's true.
In the book, Tommy's Planet is literally the most important symbol of the whole story.
That's truncated.
Yes. So that's just one of my examples. Like, Tommy's Planet in the book is used by Greg Cestero to kind of illustrate Tommy's view of the world and how he's kind of like this alien in his own mind, and it's really kind of this profound thing, the way Cestero writes about it, Dragon. the way that, Cestero kind of writes about how Tommy's loneliness is sort of encapsulated in this idea of the man, like, wanting to own his own planet and, like kind of the implications of that. The movie just doesn't explore that at all, Dragon. And so, I don't know. We'll get into it.
To be fair, that is a little high. I'm not saying it was impossible. I'm not saying they shouldn't have tackled it more. I'm just saying, yeah, man, that's a tall order to kind of sell that in the movie. Though. You got to admit, that's a little difficult. Again, not saying impossible. I'm not saying it couldn't be done at all. Just, something to consider.
Dragon, basically all the weak points I have in this movie are that, A, I don't buy Dave Franco as Greg Cestero one bit. I honestly think it's a really bad performance. I really I'm a decent enough fan of Dave Franco. I like him when he pops up. I think my favorite role that Dave Franco's had is Dave Franco was the kind of like the lackey to Zach. Oh God, is it Zach? No, it's not Zach Braff. It's Zac Efron. The lackey to Zac Efron.
Well, you're not exactly wrong when you look at it in this movie,
but no, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like Greg Cestero, like Dave Franco. Just to me, like while James Franco disappears into the role, it doesn't even feel like Dave Franco is trying. To me, I don't know. So that's overall, like, Dragon, I gotta say, I hate to say it, like, I really, because I was blown away by this movie the first watch, just because I do think that Franco's performance is just that good. I just think on a critical eye, I don't really think it holds up all that well. And, so this is going to be an interesting conversation, because I get the feeling overall, with you having not read the book, you're a lot higher on this.
With that, I guess I should start my reaction then.
By all means.
All right, so I guess just in general, how I was introduced to The Room. Very simple. I had heard the name before, The Room. I know it's not the most kind of eye-catching name, but it's The Room. I've seen that name pop up. Never really looked into it. Just seen listed among movies. Like, The Room. That's interesting. That's okay. I think I just kind of fell by the wayside, and I really didn't know there was anything important until Nostalgia Critic reviewed it, and that's really why I kind of was informed about what the heck The Room is. And I can't verify it, but I don't know. Maybe I've seen something with that billboard before, because it looked eerily familiar when he showed the image of the billboard. Like, again, it feels so familiar. I could just be like reading into it. I don't know. Maybe it just feels like, yeah, that's definitely just it feels.
Well, I mean, it is eerily familiar to, like, millions of LA, millions of people who drove the LA commute every day.
Yeah, I'm probably seeing like it's been talked about in articles or something like, hey, look, The Room. It's a billboard. It's not going away anytime soon. That's not like
that's what I'm saying. That's that's where the infamy of The Room first started, was that billboard.
So again, for me, I didn't have like a direct contact with the billboard. The point is, The Room was there. It was around, and I just you probably heard murmurs of it. And then, of course, it's actually kind of, I think, jettisoned The Room with even more popularity, despite the kind of, let's say, Wiseau and company kind of fighting that here and there. But yeah, that really kind of brought The Room into prominence, at least for me, and kind of your casual kind of John Q, movie or review watcher. And also kind of the aftermath of dealing with Wiseau, again, also kind of I think is kind of cemented kind of Wiseau into the kind of the consciousness, I think, today. Just like, okay, so Wiseau, he's definitely protective of this movie, and he's definitely passionate about
Right.
it. So the point is, The Room, I got again, one of the most, as proclaimed, the Citizen Kane of bad movies, and one of the worst. Basically, it's kind of the Ed Wood of the modern generation. That's kind of what he's been kind of like, a one-off Ed Wood. So I'd heard, I got the gist of The Rooms, and I hear the disaster artist, and of course I hear disaster artist saying, okay, well, it's about The Room. I don't know why I'm called just The Room, and of course the full title is like my time inside The Room. Of course, makes a lot more sense. Look into it a little bit. Says, okay, so that's here's a book written by Greg Cestero, and of course Doug Walker had done interviews with not only Tommy Wiseau. Briefly and kind of on a phone patch, but he's also kind of sat down and talked with Greg Cestero. So I got just that.
Greg Cestero is basically like the middleman with with Doug and Tommy.
Sure. So the point is, I had like a kind of bit of familiarity. Okay, there's a book about the making of The Room. So Tiki informed me at some point. I'm pretty sure I learned this from Tiki, if not just maybe like going through like Wikipedia one day and say, okay, disaster artist, down the making. Tiki kind of explained to me like the history a little bit. So that disaster artist, a movie based upon the book about the making of The Room, which of course, I mean, I'm a sucker for a good biopic, and I love a good biopic. Of course, we've talked about various biopics here. Of course, The Founder, Saving Mr. Banks. Of course, we're big biopic fans.
Of course.
So I was intrigued by the idea, and I was kind of sold on it, especially after we got especially after the initial trailers, the teaser and the trailer. Basically, the teaser you see.
All the advertising on this movie was so on point. The teaser trailer was like a great thesis statement on it. And then the other trailers were just like did a really good job of illustrating like, that this wasn't just going to be a comedy where we point and laugh at this guy.
So regardless, I was just intrigued because again, the idea of like kind of another vaguely kind of Ed Wood kind of biopic, and I want to say this, folks, probably my favorite Tim Burton film, and there are a lot of good ones. Honestly, I think my favorite Tim Burton movie is Ed Wood, and I really love that movie.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
I mean, honestly, just again, this is something that's going to be kind of in the same vein, just kind of a bad movie being made by someone who probably doesn't get that they're making a bad movie. Yeah, that's an interesting premise. Period. And again, that first teaser really had me. And then as the other trailers kind of came out again, I was on the bandwagon. And of course, I was horrified, kind of thinking we're going to be in a Founder situation of, oh no, it's not. What if it doesn't get a wide release? And I was like, I was worried, like, oh man, I really want to see this movie. I have to wait for it to come on demand like a year later. I'm probably have to rent it. The minute I rent it, it's going to be on demand for free. And it's going to be like, it's going to be a whole thing. But luckily, just as the stars aligned, plus a few of my buddies really wanted to see it. They're also big nostalgia critic fans, which is most likely how they got invested in The Room. That's a guess. So the point is, I had like a few friends that I really looking forward to. Like, oh man, fingers crossed we were going to be able to see it. And lo and behold, wide release. Like again, like it's like a little fake out. Like, hey, coming out December 1st, but limited. But hey, week later, wide release.
You see, like, hooray! You do a limited release, folks.
Yeah, that's like I don't mind sweating it like
not this whole like, oh, we're gonna sneak it into like 2 theaters before Christmas as if we're ashamed of it.
Exactly. I could rant about the
I know.
The point is, so I saw the movie. I was able to see the movie. It was a nice and basically coming out of it, I had such a good time seeing the experience of seeing this movie was so fun. In some way, I feel like I kind of had an experience of seeing a screening of The Room, kind of the collective kind of love in the room for a movie. Like people are there to see a representation of The Room. So it felt like I was getting in on a screening of The Room with like really an electric crowd. We all just had such a good time. We're all laughing. We're all really glued to
I will say the crowd I saw this movie with the second time was way more into it than the first night. So
the point is, it was a really great experience. I'm really happy that I've had that experience. So it was
I'm glad you had that.
Disaster Artist was a really good time.
Okay, all right. So, Dragon, let's get into some background as we go through the movie. I'll kind of explain what I mean about how the the movie sort of like watered down certain elements of the book that I was kind of disappointed by. But Dragon, I just want to say I'm really glad you had such an awesome theater experience, though. Like honestly, that to me kind of like makes a movie like this. Like sure. I'll never forget the first time I saw Clerks 2 in a crowded movie theater. It was like me and my dad saw it. Like my dad was like, I was like 15 at the time, right? So like my dad was like my adult supervisor for the R-rated movie. And Clerks 2 was like in this really small theater, but everyone in that theater was a diehard Kevin Smith fan, including me and my dad. So, nice. So I'm glad that you had like a similar experience.
Sure. Also, again, just Tiki already expressed this. Want to make sure there's no one's confusing. And I have not read the Disaster Artist book. I read the first page. I wanted to read more. I just
read it, man. I hope that this podcast is like a sales pitch because that's what I'm treating it as.
So that's where the divide's coming down here, folks. Tiki, he's all into this. Me, I've seen the movie and
I'm all into it. Like my friendship with Monkey has a lot of components to The Room with it, because that's like one of the main in-jokes between Monkey and I. So yeah, it's a pretty big part of my life.
So that's kind of the dynamic we're working with tonight, folks. So again, I've seen basically I'm going to Disaster Artist, the making of The Room through this film. He's got everything all pocketed away in corners here. So let's go through it.
Okay, so let's start with the background. Of course, there's not much to say about the background of the book. Just I will say that Greg Cestero, he had to get Tommy's permission to use everything in the book, which of course makes the book in itself questionable. That's kind of the thing, Dragon. That's the thing, as you'll see in the book and in the story in general, is that Tommy Wiseau, he operates in his own world. That's why the Tommy's Planet symbol is so important to the story, I think. It's like this guy really is in his own world. So, even though the book does vilify him a lot, actually a lot more than the movie does, I think. For some reason, Wiseau did sign off on it, so good on him. It's one of those things on a whim, like Tommy is just like, one day he'll be like, I want my entire store out there, what's in all, and then the next day he's just like, oh, I big famous American movie star, I never do anything wrong.
Greg, this is only 40% true. Why are you doing me like this, man?
Right. So,
but though, Tiki, if I may, for a moment here, kind of be springboard into the making of here with a question. I think it's an important question for the movie, for everything, honestly.
Sure.
So, Greg Cestero. So, I would assume this would have to be in the book. This would be like the only thing of background around the book I need to know, and I gotta assume it's going to be in there. Does Greg go into why he did the book, like specifically, like any moment where he kind of knew what he was going to do? Basically, do you know why he made the book? Is it in the book anywhere? Like why he decided to tell the story?
Honestly, he decided to tell the story because he wanted to give a more human portrayal of Tommy as a three-dimensional character, because he saw the good and the bad of Tommy. You know what I mean? He went through the whole roller coaster of living with this guy, having this guy basically be possessive over his whole life for a period of time. And, while seeing all the bad in Tommy, he also saw all the humanity in him. And so I really think that's what drove Greg to tell the story, is that it's this character, right? It's this character who... The
disaster artist, the guy who
orchestrated
the artist behind his own disaster. Yeah.
And this guy in of himself is like the world's biggest internet meme, right? So that really is the challenge, both in the book and in the movie, is kind of like showing humanity to this guy while at the same time, not sugarcoating it, which I definitely don't think the book does. Yeah. All right. So the movie was picked up in February of 2014 by Seth Rogen's production company. And it was announced that James Franco would direct it and also play Tommy Wiseau, and that Dave Franco would star as Greg Cestero alongside his brother. This is actually the first time that James Franco and Dave Franco have worked together, because in the past, Dave Franco's tried to take on different roles, to kind of not look like he's standing in his brother's shadow. And James Franco was actually really nervous about pitching this to Dave, because basically here's the weird thing about the brotherly dynamic, Dragon. Like, I don't know. I think it works for the movie, but at the same time, I think Tommy's back and forth with Greg works in the movie. And I think that the fact that they're brothers helps. It's just that I don't think Dave Franco was cast well as Greg in the first place. We'll get into that.
Yeah, I'll have a defense for it. We'll get there. But,
so anyways, James Franco, his ambitions were high for this. He was basically wanting to make it a combination of two Paul Thomas Anderson movies, those being Boogie Nights and The Master. Mm-hmm. And of course...
Well, Tiki, I'm sorry, I hate to just want to infuse the little I do know of this, if I may.
Sure.
James Franco, he was introduced to, like the rest of the world, he was introduced to The Room through the billboard. And from what I understand, he was, around the time he was doing the interview, he read the book, and that's kind of what led him down the path of adapting the story.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the book was definitely one of those things. I mean, the book spread around Hollywood like a wildfire. Because, before the book came out, Dragon, The Room was just kind of this weird thing. It was like no one knew if it was like a cult or what. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly,
what are these weird people like showing up at midnight throwing spoons at the screen?
What I heard is that Franco, he felt a real kinship with
absolutely.
He basically kind of a perception, basically how an actor is perceived with kind of oddball roles here and there.
Sure. So much like how Cestero wanted to show the humanity in Wiseau, that was kind of like, James Franco's goal as well. Yeah. And of course, James Franco basically pulled a Jim and Andy with this.
Yes,
but do you mind giving the audience a little taste of that riff you were doing earlier?
This is ridiculous, folks, but imagine this, if you will. Okay, so essentially, just to say it, so James Franco, he He directed, he directed in character, not as method as Jim Carrey with Andy Kaufman, but let's say he's probably going for this on Seth. Hey Seth Rogen, hey, Seth, come over here, Seth. I want to show you something, Seth. We're making a movie here. It's going to be great. Now, Seth, James. No, it's not James. I don't know who James is. I'm not. I don't even like pie. I'm not James. No, Seth. You know who. Tell me who I am. Tell me who I am. I'm Johnny. No, you're not Johnny. You're right, because I'm really Tommy Wiseau. Yes, Seth. You good boy. You in front of class. Okay. Now listen, Seth. I was watching Netflix here, and on Netflix, I came across this movie. Really good movie, Seth. Movie is Jim and Andy with contractual obligated Tony Clifton. It's great. This is what movie we need to make. I mean, he became. There's no Jim Carrey in the movie. It's Andy Kaufman. Now we need to do that movie, right? So that's the movie we need to make. Says, what we're making based on disaster. I should probably go buy the book. No, Seth, you don't get it. We need to make meta movie. People love meta. They love memes. They love meta. They love, they love Netflix. We need to make Netflix movies. Tommy, I don't think we should. No, you're not getting it. Seth, I need you to film this movie. I need you to help me make this movie. I need you to shoot this movie like you shoot wrestling. Tommy, I don't actually shoot I don't actually work the camera. I pretend to work the camera. It's acting like we've done on other movies. Like I never worked with you before. Seth, what are you talking about? You sound crazy. Okay, the point is.
All right. I'm gonna cut you off.
Anyway,
I'm honestly just waiting for you to get to the part about like him confusing Seth Rogen for a real cameraman.
Okay, but real quick, Tiki, this is important though. We should absolutely hit this because this is where Wiseau factors in. Tell the folks how James Franco landed the role.
Well, of course, James Franco landed the role because Wiseau's initial hope was Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. Now they're a good actor, James Franco.
But then, when Johnny Depp was not available, he's like, all right, well, what about James Franco, huh?
Because, and for a very special reason, that is in the movie, technically.
Yeah, go ahead.
James Franco, of course, famously played a character who he does share a lot of similarities to, James Dean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as we see in this movie, Tommy Wiseau kind of viewed himself as kind of the master class of actor, very much in kind of the old, the rebel without a cause. He was sort of like a Brando and a James Dean kind of melding. So he loves those kind of schools of acting thoughts. So based on the fact that James Franco did James Dean, he says, okay, this guy's my second pick. I can go with him.
Baby face.
Yes. Put a lot of trust in old Franco.
Okay, and Dragon, I remember kind of like my nightmare scenario for this movie. I know it sounds small, but like I remember I was really pissed off about this when I heard about it. That like back in like 2015, it was rumored that this movie was going to be called The Masterpiece.
What's the room? Of course, it's The Masterpiece, Tiki. How do you not know that?
Which, look, it's a fine title. I just don't understand why you would just blatantly change the name of the book.
That's Greg's book. This is my move. No, I'm sorry.
So, sounds like I'm podcasting with Wiseau here. So basically, the title was confirmed in, when the film premiered at SXSW in, this past April 2016. And then the rest is history. Basically, Dragon, this film it's been building up buzz for about a year. For about a year, it's been playing festival circuits. Like, there's a reason they could have, Dragon, here's the deal. They could have released this movie in 2016 if they wanted to. Like, 2016, they had it in the can, but they didn't really have any buzz behind it yet, and they didn't really know how to market it yet. So, essentially, what they spent this whole past year doing is, building it around to theater circuits, the festival circuits, building buzz around it, having Greg and Tommy themselves promote the movie to kind of get this groundswell going on about it, this groundswell, promoting the room itself, of course, the great advertising campaign that we've seen for it, all the good trailers. Dragon, I'm sure you've seen the stand-ups of Wiseau in the movie theater behind the green screen.
God.
So yeah, overall, and of course, I even think that this movie, they actually reinstated the billboard for a brief time, Dragon.
Well, I know they did that for the book. I can only assume they did it for the movie.
Yes, they did it for the movie for a brief time of course, with Franco as Wiseau. And yeah, that's about it. And of course now this movie is definitely getting some Oscar buzz, although I think Franco is definitely the main contender. And that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dragon, why don't you quickly summarize this plot, and then we'll break it down.
Very simply, folks. The film is about the friendship between two aspiring actors, Greg Cestero and the eccentric, enigmatic Tommy Wiseau. They moved to Hollywood together to make their dreams come true. Greg finds humble success, while Tommy's dreams are smashed at every turn. Tommy eventually realizes to be a success, he needs to do it himself with The Room. The friends set out to film Tommy's script. Eclectic chaos ensues as Tommy and Greg's friendship becomes more and more strained, leading to an explosive rift, to be repaired ultimately at the big premiere that would launch them into the stratosphere of cult success. And essentially, that's the movie.
Okay, so let's break it down. So, Dragon, I will say the opening scene of the film is spot on from the book. And I actually think it might be even better than the book, just because, it's a visual medium. And I just love the way it's shot with, we see the back of Wiseau. We see, we know it's him, but we don't get his face yet. The movie makes us earn it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
we have a great build to him, and I love that we set up some great kind of thematic stuff that kind of reoccur throughout the film. Like, for example, he does have a distinct profile with the hair. His hair, like when lit, you know it's him. It's like that's his bad insignia almost.
So yeah, I definitely think the opening scene, and of course the opening scene is also a great sort of basically, Dragon, here is the thing from the book that I think they did nail.
I like that we start with Greg, by the way.
Yes. But the thing with Tommy that we nail is basically like a mix of pity, a mix of like wanting to laugh at him, and a mix of being scared of him.
True.
So all three of those things are kind of prevalent throughout the book with Tommy. The humor of him, like the fact that he's kind of a genuinely freaky guy, and and the fact that ultimately he's pitiful. And I think the opening scene kind of like sums up all three of those quite well.
Now, of course, just any onlooker of like the movie, you just check out The Room, you're not going to infer like the pitiable quality of Tommy Wiseau. You're just going to see him as either crazy funny guy or crazy like okay creepy guy.
Yeah, I don't know, Dragon. You haven't sat down and actually watched The Room. That's the thing.
Oh, I've sat down and watched it. I don't know.
You have?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't. Okay, well, I think there are some genuine moments of humanity with Johnny. You just have to look for them. To me, the line that I always go back to that kind of shows like the genuine humanity of Wiseau is, if a lot of people love each other, the world will be a better place to live.
To be fair, I haven't watched it since, I haven't watched it after this movie. I think it would have a lot more of that kind of,
Yeah, that's the thing, because when I watch the movie, I kind of view it as like a fascinating study on Wiseau's view of the world, so...
Exactly, I think that's the difference. I mean, it's worth checking.
Like you've seen it, I've studied it.
That's what I'm saying. I've never studied, so again, I'd be missing out on a lot of that. So
okay, I hear you.
But yeah, let's take real quick. Let's talk about some more specific stuff with Franco's bicycle, because we're starting to kind of hit that here. So of course, I did learn that he absolutely did use prosthetics. So he actually is all prosthetic up in the face for this movie.
I mean, I'm not surprised because, frankly, I think Franco is a little too pretty to play Wiseau as is.
I love that it's like subtle. It's like just subtle enough. Like he does have like the eyepiece put in to kind of give him that kind of the half-lidded. half-witted thing, but a lot of that, it's a great mixture of practicality and of course all performance in there. So it's a great mix.
Oh, there. I mean, just the stuff that Franco does, just like with his eyes and his face, like kind of like the sunken in quality. He does so much by not talking, which I think is very understated in this performance because, of course, it's Wiseau. You know, it's all about the voice and the impression. But Dragon, really, I think the mannerisms of Wiseau are kind of like where Franco sort of just disappears into the role and it becomes almost creepy.
I think you're right about that. And again, with the method quality here, so again, let me just to clarify what the difference between method here. So again, it's not like Jim and Andy, where basically Jim Carrey literally, when he figured out what Andy Kaufman was, he didn't show up unless Andy Kaufman did not have a scene that day. So that's literally how kind of like he sucked in like to the role he got. Like Jim Carrey didn't really go home and go to sleep. That was Andy Kaufman. He just kind of basically took a vacation in his own mind during that movie. And it's not exactly a Jared Leto thing by any stretch. It's just basically Franco. He would.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone wants it to be a Jared Leto.
Well, no one does. I'm just saying there's a fine line. There are different types of method you can go.
Right.
And of course, the misconception about Heath Ledger, which I won't get into. The point is that's just the guy who did a lot of research beforehand, could like turn on like a light switch. In this case, Franco, like he gets in the makeup chair, and once he's made up. Basically, he struck a good balance between the director kind of directing himself in a role, but he wouldn't break character. Basically, it's kind of like the best comparison I have is kind of like Christian Bale in Batman Begins, where he was in character during that movie, but it was to the point where he just he'd get into the role in the day, but when he goes home, he's probably himself.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean,
on set, he would be
Seth Rogen like pounding beers after a day of shooting. You know what I mean?
Exactly. On set, he would be the character essentially. That's the simple. The simple way it goes. Of course, it would freak out if like the people who knew James Franco very well, like Seth Rogen and his parents. Right. Well, his grandparents specifically, from what I've heard, his wife and his grandparents were really freaked out by Franco. His wife, they didn't get it. They were, but again, it's impressive. The reason Franco did that, from what I understood, is he did that because he never will have not like kind of a Kaufman-esque opportunity like that again. Never.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why he did it, is because of the meta quality of it.
And that's why he directed. Do you know if is this his directing debut or has
no? He's actually directed a bunch of other smaller movies that you've never heard of.
Yeah, that's what I don't know what those are. I heard like he may have directed before. So
he's directed very, very obscure movies.
All right. Well, again, this is the big kind of like the fame kind of claim to fame.
I think he may have directed Spring Breakers, which at this point might have been his, up until this point might have been his biggest movie.
Well, it does not seem to be a Yates, but I've not watched the movie, so I can't judge it. So. Anyway, as we did this introduction too, I love this. It's all throughout the film, by the way. I love it. It's a little bit here. It's more so when we have these two kind of meet each other. But I like that we foreshadow elements of the movie within Tommy's life. It's a classic thing to do in a biopic, but I really like how it's done here. It's like subtle enough, that subtle, a loose term with Tommy Wiseau, but go with me here is that the way he tries pulling a Brando, Stella, and when he's writhing on the ground, kind of like he writhes with the dress later on. He basically kind of overacting a death scene later on. So that's kind of what he's doing here in his big, just kind of random scene. But the fact is where I look where this bonds the friendship here between Cestero and Wiseau is the fact, again, he puts himself out there, and that's Greg's problem. Greg can't put himself out there. Greg doesn't exactly know how to channel his ambition, and Wiseau is he's doing it with that fear, which leads to the great meeting between these two titans.
Sure.
So I like the ground rules right from the start. I think that's a great way of building the mystery. Right out the gate, we established kind of the big three mysteries of Tommy Wiseau. We kind of established, the ground rules, like you don't tell anyone about, you don't tell class about me, anything about me. I just like that as kind of the.
That's definitely something that comes back over and over again in the book. Is okay, Dragon. I'll tell you a little fun fact about the book. All right.
All right, tell me.
Okay, so do you remember the whole speech that Greg Cestero gives to Tommy with the inappropriate laugh? Like, I once knew a guy, I once knew a girl, had a dozen guys. The guy beat her up so bad she ended up on a hospital on Guerrera Street. Okay, well here's the thing, Dragon. Guerrera Street was an ad lib by Greg, and it was actually the street that Tommy's San Francisco apartment was on.
Oh.
And so the theory is that the reason why Tommy was doing the whole chuckle during that take is that he was so pissed at Greg for, basically revealing the personal information that he was just being stubborn, right? Like he wouldn't listen to anything. And so that's why they had no choice but to use that take. Like he knew it was pissing them off, but he was pissed off.
Wow, that's mind blowing. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, I got more of them, so we'll see as we go.
All right. Yeah. So the point is, again, he just kind of goes to this strange sage, what he thinks is a sage-like figure, and then they go to a diner. And of course, I really like the diner scene. Again, I think is a good. I think we established the bond.
Can I just say that pizza looks absolutely delicious?
I tell you, it was good film quality pizza. I got to give you that. But yeah, I mean that diner scene. I think we're taking just enough time to cement the friendship in the beginning. There, I think we see kind of the charm and discomfort of.
No, I agree. Here's the element of the friendship in the book, Dragon, that I wanted more of from the movie, and that's kind of like the dangerous element to Wiseau, kind of like the thing that Greg's mother, played by Megan Mullally, who I thought did a good job in the role. Of course, she was a holdover from Why Him.
I mean, seriously, there were so many Franco.
I know there was like Zoe Deutsch shows up in the movie. Bryan Cranston, of course.
Of course, some of Dave Franco, like Lizzie Kaplan, who I love on some other shows. She was in Now You See Me with Dave Franco. They had like, kind of a back and forth in that movie, so it's no surprise she's in this one.
Anyways. No, here's the deal, though, Dragon. Basically, it was a really scary situation for Greg Cestero to just move to L.A. with this. Think about it. Like, he just meets this random eccentric guy in class who's super secretive, like instantly takes like this weird fascination to Greg. Here's kind of like my main problem with the movie, Dragon, all right? The movie, I feel like the movie simplifies Tommy and Greg's relationship to just like, golly gee willikers, we're two kids who have stars in our eyes and dreams in our hearts, and we're going to make something big out of ourselves. Dragon, in reality, it was a lot more complicated in that. In reality, Tommy and Greg were both kind of shitty people who were kind of leeching off of each other, and the book acknowledges as much. Like, Greg is very self-critical of himself during this time period. So essentially, the only reason why Greg moved to LA with Tommy, I'm sorry, what?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure. The reason why the reason why Greg agreed to move to LA with Tommy is it's basically about as simple as that Greg was just sort of taking advantage of Tommy being a nice guy, and he knew the situation was sketch, right? Like, he knew he was getting into, like, he was basically, essentially Tommy offered free rent to Greg. And so Greg was just like, okay, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to move out of my house, to move down to LA, to hopefully achieve my dream. And Dragon, I tell you, the scary part of this whole story comes into play as we see in the movie, as they go into Hollywood. I mean, we can backtrack to, to other stuff in the movie, but I'm just, this is kind of part of the context, though. Tommy becomes super possessive over Greg. And they show that a little bit in the movie. They touch on it in the movie. But in the book, there's a genuine fear to it. In the book, when you're reading the descriptions of the way Tommy would act, there's like a claustrophobic quality to it. Like, Tommy would just he'd sink his teeth into like every single corner of Greg's life. And of course, one of the more interesting things about the Greg stuff that I'm not surprised it got cut out of the story because for time is that Greg actually landed a main role in a horror movie franchise sequel. I believe it's Puppet Master 4. Greg played the main villain.
Yeah, I heard it. I think it was in the Savage. I think it was the Shut Up and Talk interview with Doug Walker.
Right. And this was basically kind of a turning point in Tommy and Greg's relationship. That's the turning point where it went from... Because essentially it started out where, they did have the James Dean connection and everything like that. That was all genuine. Like, basically the James Dean connection was, the night where they went out to, they took the impromptu road trip to visit James Dean's memorial. That was essentially the most genuine bonding moment Tommy and Greg ever had. Of course, since then, they've become good friends, of course, bonding through the experience of making The Room together. But... but basically, as the movie showed, it's, that whole James Dean thing was kind of what drove them together. I don't know, Dragon. As I said, it's just like as the movie goes forward, as you know, as Greg starts to become like, you know, at least like modestly, like he's not successful by any stretch, but you know, he's got an agent, he's got a couple roles, you know, that just you know, that Tommy literally couldn't live with that, Dragon, and that's kind of the scary part of Wiseau that I wish the movie would have hit on a little more.
I think I'm going to make this argument for a lot of that stuff. You always have to. I'm going to make a twofold argument. I'm going to say I think, of course, there's always a bit of artistic liberty in there. So always have to streamline certain things because again, you'd end up with a really long movie. They're going to do all those.
Okay, to be fair, I think this movie's like it could stand to be longer. It's like an hour and a half.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, it's like an hour and 38 minutes, so it's like an hour and a half of credits.
I could have sworn it was a little longer than that. But okay, it's.
Like, I think this movie could have easily been a solid 2 hours. Like, I'm not saying make it a 2.5 hour movie, but
I would possibly make the other argument that perhaps it's sort of it's. I mean, I'm kind of at odds with this because again, it could be. A part of me wants to say there's a lot of this movie is definitely there's a lot of great kind of subtle references to the room and that we see things set up that again we're going to see pay off in the movie, and I think perhaps there's a bit of a tonal example of that here and there that we kind of the room is obviously it's exaggerated. It's obvious it's exaggerated. It's pushed and it's kind of you could argue kind of a commentary on how on like a Tommy Wiseau type, a person who is just who lives and breathes what he thinks America is. And the room is just kind of it's kind of a hyper intensive version of how someone like that would view America, and that's kind of like he's sensibilities. They're all cliches, and they're all like kind of cliches blown up to 11. And taking that, and that just in the room, and you kind of take that quality, but you kind of bring it to a biopic, which would kind of lead to kind of some more kind of. I don't want not sappy, but you know what I mean, like kind of like I guess romanticize simplified moments like that. Basically, we started genuine friendships. So we kind of look at it through the view of Tommy and that quality a little bit here and there. So I'd consider that. I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong. That's something to consider, maybe.
Like I said, Dragon, my problem with it is just how simplified they make it, because I don't know. I mean, I just think we've seen the whole like, golly gee willikers, we're really going to make something out of this town, when in reality they never really had that rooftop moment, you know. And I get that they're making a movie. I don't know, to me it kind of simplified the story a little bit. But back to the movie itself, Dragon, is there anything you want to backtrack to before they get to LA?
Right, well, I already mentioned the diner scene. You get the charm and discomfort of his Tommy being out there, and then before that's the quality that Greg coming out of his shell through
Come on, you have to do it.
And initially, that's what draws Greg to Tommy. But as we go into the first act, we're going to see that Greg, obviously, he starts to realize that Tommy's kind of clinging on to like a bad habit, which again I think does represent that element from the book you're talking about, where Tommy is kind of he's involving himself in Greg's life. I will admit that one scene though, I think we need a little bit more of just Tommy clinging to Greg to make that sell. I will give you that.
That's what I'm saying, because throughout the book you feel that presence as the story goes on, it starts to become really claustrophobic.
I say in Greg's personal life, just like in the acting life, I don't see enough of it. I don't see how it's costing him jobs. I see in the personal life that how he's just he's becoming clingy. I see that much of it. I think just maybe if they punched up the other half of that, I'll give you that. But again, that James Dean bonding scene is really nice. I just love the kind of that's the quality that's selling the friendship. That spur of the moment, hey, Greg's always talking about doing stuff. Why don't we do it? And again, that's kind of a charming quality. And again, there's that connection.
That is the quality to Wiseau that Greg did love, is the whole like, you know what, guy, you just got to live life, huh?
Yeah. Now, speaking of that, Tanti is a big thing I really want to know from you, being the guy who's read the book. And I think it's important, something I really enjoyed. My friends and I really kind of grabbed on to watching this movie. It kind of fascinated us about the James Franco's take on Wiseau. The car accident subplot, the car accident detail. That kind of adds a bit of we're getting. Well, of course, Tommy Wiseau, we don't know every little thing about the guy's enigma, mainly on those three elements about his past. The guy's very dodgy about his past. We do learn that, at least in this movie, they make reference to the fact he was in a car accident that he walked away from. And he was kind of different after that car accident. I'm not saying it's like a brain damage thing per se, but the fact is, it was kind of it was a thing that kind of encouraged him to kind of take the direct approach to life, just kind of
Right.
do things that way. And there is that lingering question of, could there be some lasting, psychological or just, physical brain damage to why so. It's kind of
thing, Dragon. I feel like the car accident, like we don't even know if the car accident happened, right? Because as I said, Tommy Wiseau, like in life and in fiction, is the world's biggest unreliable narrator. So that's what you have to take into consideration, right?
Well, sure. Well, is that in the book? Like, has Cestero said anything about that in the book?
Dragon, it's been a while since I read the book. I don't remember anything about a car accident, but what I do remember from the book is that it was always like there was always a bunch of different speculations about it, like, about like what could have caused Tommy, like there was definitely speculation about brain damage for sure, or like a learning disability or whatever. As I said, this would go on, and we saw a little bit of it, through like on the set of The Room, the cast and crew would kind of speculate on it and kind of gossip. But I gotta tell you, man, I'm not really remembering I'm sure it was probably mentioned in the book, the car accident thing, but I don't mean to like disappoint you with this, but I'm not really remembering it as like a major subplot. Like as I said, the Tommy's Planet thing was a major subplot.
Well, let me just last thing I'll say about the car accident. Just again, something that I think kind of adds some additional context. And again, whether it's unreliable narrator or not, of course, I mean, it's always stemming from unreliable narrator. But my point is just as it existed here, it is something that, again, it's like one of those elements of the movie that is kind of building sympathy.
I'm just saying, like Tommy Wiseau would make Elliot Alderson blush with how much of an unreliable narrator he is.
Oh, sure. It's like another element that kind of makes you kind of stop and think about your preconceived notions of Tommy Wiseau, and whether it's true or not. That's something else. But it's the fact that if that is the case, it kind of makes you stop and think. But also, it's another James Dean connection, which kind of makes it sound maybe a little fishy. But at the same time, of course, James Dean famously dying of. I'm just saying it's something that, but it's also kind of something that has happened to other famous filmmakers. George Lucas, he was in a car accident afterwards. That's what kind of brought him into filmmaking.
Of course.
So I thought it was like an interesting element that, again, is starting to it's kind of seeding that idea of like,
Did Mark Hamill's accident kind of lead him to voice acting?
I thought it was more of a face. Tiki, that's an excellent point. I never really consider. I don't really think that steered him the voice. I thought it was just like kind of like a dry career. I don't really.
Okay, I'm just kind of.
I've never considered that though.
Trying to connect the dots where they don't need to be connected.
Anyway, anyways, that's just that's something to consider. It's kind of like a detail to appreciate in the movie, I guess.
Greg, do you have anything more to say about the pre-LA, because I do have a really interesting LA story.
Let's see. I think we already went over the wonderful Megan Moley.
Yes,
Greg's mom. Of course, just how highly suspect it is that just like she meets a guy.
I love the scene because Tommy is just like he's in the background, just like basically doing everything wrong. Just,
yep.
Like as they pull off, Tommy's just like, she crazy.
But yeah, the pink. Did we get the pinky swear before LA, or is that in LA?
I think the first time we see the pinky swear is the James Dean Memorial.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the pinky swear, and again, that is something that is also in Why Him. A lot of stuff in Why Him is in this movie, oddly enough.
Right.
Of course, there are a lot of the actors, but also some similar grim motifs. But again, the pinky swear. But here, it's more of a whimsical pinky swear. Again, I'm liking the whimsy, and I'm just chalking up to, again, that's just kind of the magic of filmmaking, kind of seen through the Wiseau lens, perhaps.
Mm.
I don't know. But anyways, I think it's all the LA stuff. So again, the travel. By the way, I like that initially those kind of transition cards are kind of pointless in the beginning, because it says going to LA. We know they're going to LA. We don't need to see it. We don't need to see like a few minute or an hour's past LA. Like we get they're going to LA. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, so yeah, when they reach LA, I mean, this is more a story about how The Room actually got developed. So do you kind of want to build to that a little bit?
Yeah, we probably build to that towards the end of Act 1. Okay, so we get to the LA.
I actually kind of want to use this story as a transitioning point to talk about like the making of The Room. So just let me know when we get there.
Oh, we're almost there. So, we hit the LA apartment, which again I like this, and one of the things I love seeing in the film here. Again, might be just artistic lyric, but again, I think it's hilarious if it's just, actually how it goes down. The fact that we see these set pieces that are again identical to the main two set pieces we see in the room.
Right, the rooftop and the alley.
Yeah, I mean, again, the apartment that they're in, the Tommy.
Dragon, I gotta tell you, like, I don't really remember the book emphasizing like the football and no, not so much the football. The football was there, but I don't really remember the alley and I think that's more visual, but it makes sense because it's a visual medium, right? You want to have those connective tissue there.
Well, sure, and again, it's something that biopics do all the time, just to kind of hammer it in there. But at the same point, I'd say like again, we've had like seeds like the meltdown. We have the diner scene, which of course in the room we have Johnny and Mark. Oh, hi, Mark. Having a scene there, and of course the football device. Just see him kind of play football, good old chilling. I like how that football scene comes back.
To be honest with you, the one cheat I thought the movie did with the football thing was how Greg was playing it with the little kids.
Well, again, I think
I was like, all right, movie, now you're being a little cute.
Honestly, Tiki, I would argue this. I argue that's kind of where he's getting the genesis of the idea of Denny.
Oh, okay, I do kind of like that.
That's what I'm saying, Tiki. That's a big thing I gotta kick out.
Yeah. Oh God, no, you're right. You're right. That's funny to think about. But yeah.
I like seeing the genesis of the room stuff, whether it's like factual or not. I like seeing the genesis of these things. Is kind of
because Denny is kind of like this bizarre amalgamation of like a kid and an adult.
Yeah. And again, like there's the playing of football, kind of four guys, playing football. There's the the recurring device, and again, I like how we set up that important kind of football scene that does come back in a really important way. Let's just say by the end of Act 2.
Can I just say Josh Hutcherson might be the second most impressive performance in this movie?
Josh Hutcherson really is. He's always been a good actor, and I think now he has a show on Hulu I really got to check out because he's been kind of dealing with Punisher and everything right now. So I eventually going to get to it. And I believe
in Runaways.
No, not Runaways. He has another show. It's called is it Future Man or is it Future? The point is, it's also
excited about Runaways for a second.
Again, I have to take it. It's getting such good buzz. I got to check it out. It has a terrible start. I got to give it a chance.
No, seriously, if Josh Hutcherson was like the lead on Runaways, I'd definitely look into it.
But of course, I'd be more inclined to stick with it if Josh Hutcherson was in it. Anyway,
Bridge to Terabithia was when I first saw Josh Hutcherson. I thought he was really good in that movie.
I think the first thing I saw him in was A Journey to the Center of the Earth.
I think my movie's better.
I'm just saying I knew he was in it. I'm saying the first time I watched him from start to finish.
I'm not saying Bridge to Terabithia is like a masterpiece or anything, but I don't think the movie adaptation of Bridge to Terabithia gets the credit it deserves because basically that movie was it just got killed by an awful marketing campaign.
Tiki, you're tearing me apart with these tangents.
All right. Anyways. No.
Anyway, what was I getting to here? Oh yes, so aside from the football thing, again with the apartment though, that's kind of a visual gag where again the living space and the rooftop. These are sets that again I was wondering in the theaters watching. Wait a minute, again I don't know a lot about the room here, but is it possible that I heard there were green screens? Obviously in that teaser trailer there was a green screen there, but I mean can't they? Do they just use these set pieces and use their own apartment? Because again, it looks identical.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. Yes, there was an alley outside of the studio that looked identical to the alley that Tommy shot at, and Tommy did set it up to look identical to the alley because he wanted to make a real Hollywood movie.
And I like that we kind of have that just kind of it's under your nose and kind of creeping in that sense of what's going to happen there. Just oh yeah, we have these obvious nobody. He just could have used what he had available already to do all of this.
Right.
Because he wanted to make a real Hollywood movie. And then, of course, you see the divergent career paths here. Of course, Greg is kind of getting some breaks on his model good looks and his baby face.
I will say the one who played his agent, that's a bigger role in the book. I'm not surprised that it's only in one scene.
Sure,
movie, but what we did see of it was pretty spot on from what I imagined that character to be like from the book. So
yeah, I looked into I believe it's Sharon Stone's character, right? She
yeah.
And I heard that she was really good to him and gave him his she was a nice lady in real life.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. It was nice. That was a comforting fact to learn. I just got to say, it was good for Greg Cestero.
Uh,
Anyway, so Tommy, of course, Tommy. Basically, in Hollywood, he's a square and a circle peg. That's kind of what the guy is. The guy's not, he's not really an actor. And I love the. We see there's a balance of love and jealousy for Greg. And again, I like that. And Tiki, this is what's fascinating about the movies. I love that you can see these ideas taking root for the Room story.
For the Room, yes.
That there's a love and there's a jealousy for
and Dragon, can I just say that's one of the things I wish that the movie would have emphasized more is how Greg basically was scared shitless that Tommy wrote this role for him.
I think you're right, Tiki.
Because it echoed real life so much.
I tell you what they should have done, Tiki. And I think they're trying to do this, but they didn't push it enough. But they did attempt it. Is that the scene where Greg reads the script? When Greg reads the script, I think there was that moment of pause. I think had they played that, held that on like a little longer or something, that's what I think that would have made it. I think they would have done exactly what you're going for. But I think there was that pause was an attempt at maybe factoring that in, but it didn't land as hard as they wanted it to.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I'm gonna say it anyway. Yeah. So again, like the root of jealousy and this the whole stance on the Mark character through Greg is kind of being is there, and of course again there's that I already went through the whole we're not. Tommy's holding him back. We're not quite seeing enough of that, so I'll give it taking the point off for that. Now, okay, we got to talk about this big scene. This scene broke my heart. This is where I'm getting the sympathy for Tommy. This is where the fascination's coming in. The Judd Apatow scene.
Oh yeah.
Man, I was fascinated by this Judd Apatow scene. One by the fact, hey, look, Judd Apatow. But aside from that, it was just this basically the door closing in Hollywood for Tommy here, where he's going about it, and you hear nightmare stories like this all the time in Hollywood. That producers and directors and the casting agents, they always have aspiring actors walk up to them with stuff like this, and usually they're still kind of like they'll give up and go home. But Tommy, no, he's pulling his diner antics from San Francisco, and it's not flying here. He's embarrassing himself. But again, I like that you see Tommy. He's not giving up, but he's still feeling you can see him getting discouraged. You can see kind of again, he doesn't have an ego yet. That's the fascinating thing there. The ego's, I shouldn't say he doesn't have an ego, but his ego is kind of breaking down in the seniors. Judd Apatow just kind of rips into him with honesty. He just says, Tommy, listen, you're not an actor. You will never be an actor. Again, it's really harsh, but in a way, Apatow's trying to do him a service, but he's really ticked off at him. So it's basically this is like the big Tommy reaching a low point in Act 1 is basically the industry saying, Tommy, we don't want you. We're never going to let you in.
It's less the low point. It's more the inciting incident.
You're right about that. I'm just saying to Tommy, it would feel like a low point. Like, Tommy doesn't view the other low point almost as a low point. But you're right. I'm saying you're absolutely right. It is the inciting incident. The point is, this is Hollywood saying you will never get in through the conventional means that we usually do business, as in you can't get to us. Then, of course, jettisons the Ed Wood route after seeing The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yes. Now, Dragon, do you know how big Talented Mr. Ripley was in the story? Because it sounds like you're vaguely familiar with it.
I could have sworn that they also had this in the movie, Tiki, that he shows in the movie, says, it's just like you, Tommy. And then that now what they didn't hit on, from what I understand, you correct me absolutely if I'm wrong, that Greg showed him this to show him that he was exactly like, I believe, the Matt Damon character.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That he was identically
it shook Tommy. It shook him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Now, from what I understand, what they didn't hit on enough is that Tommy got basically got the idea for the Room, or the idea of telling a story like that, with the Room.
Yeah, and so that's why it kind of that's honestly one of the most irritating things about the movie is the fact that they sort of shoehorn the Talented Mr. Ripley thing into the Mark Damon joke. Because it is that is accurate. That is where the name of the character came from, is Tommy thinking that Matt Damon was Mark Damon, but
oh god, that is hilarious.
No, that's 100% true.
I did not know that, and I think it's hysterical.
But I don't know. Again, I think the Talented Mr. Ripley and Tommy's Planet, you're right. It would have been a challenge to work into the script, but I feel like a better script would have had that,
Let me say this though, what the
I feel like if David Fincher was directing this movie, then the Tommy's Planet stuff would be much more emphasized.
Maybe, but that's kind of like, I don't think we can get a good barometer on that. So that's kind of a hard issue. Anyway, but let me say this, with the symbols that we do have, I will say this now, I forget if they then go up on the rooftop after this, but the point is
after that's the rooftop, yeah.
The rooftop, we have the rooftop itself is a great symbol with these scenes, with, the real rooftop scenes where they're kind of making these kind of vows, and they're both kind of thinking about calling it quits before the room kind of genesis comes into being here. But I like this symbol that the rooftop is that reality breeds the true story that Tommy should be focusing on, that Tommy should be telling, but he's going to sensationalize it through fake rooftops and kind of the fake green screens, all because he wants to, again, make it like a big glitz and glamour Hollywood movie. It's the fact that if he told more honest, basically if he told a story that he's living, which he's trying to do, but he's going way overboard.
Exactly.
A great movie. And of course, it's kind of a meta thing, is that's kind of what we're examining here. But so back then did not know. So I think it's fascinating. So it's, yeah.
All right.
So that's the end of Act 1, I suppose.
So yeah, that was kind of my story, was the Talented Mr. Ripley thing. So. All right, then we get into the making of the room itself. Dragon, I thought these scenes were very, very good. The only thing is I wish there was a little bit more of a narrative through line to them.
Yeah, they're not super interconnected. They're more just kind of like, okay, well, I don't know, I mean, they are chronological, if you want to understand.
More or less, yes.
I'm saying they're played.
My problem is more in terms of like the narrative. Like I feel like it shifts into the low of lows like very abruptly, but we'll get into that later. So
I'll tell you what I think the problem is.
What?
I think the problem is that we might have too many opportunities for low of lows within that too.
Could be.
Okay, anyway, go on. Though you were saying.
You want to hear a story about the first day of shooting that didn't make it into the movie?
Real quick, I just want to make sure one thing before we get there. So we stepped on the script. He has Greg read where it went with. So later, and I think it's important that Greg's not clipping Tommy's wings, which again is kind of making for a fatalistic relationship. There is that had Greg stopped him and kind of hesitated on those moments, he would have kind of saved them both all that trouble.
Yes, but at the same time, had Greg stopped him, then Greg would basically be a nobody.
Right. Now, I presume that's the story you're about to lead us into, the whole kind of the Mark role, right?
The story I'm about to tell is the fact that there were two actors for the Mark role. Do you know that story?
No, that's I'm waiting. I'm in pins and needles waiting for you to tell me the story, how they got, what the whole deal with the Mark role is.
Okay. The whole deal with the Mark role, Dragon, is that Tommy literally surprised Greg at the last minute with the fact that Tommy wrote the Mark role for him. And Dragon, do you know how committed Tommy was to this whole idea of being like, haha, surprise, I fool you.
Hey, Greg, I have something for you.
Basically. So, and of course, this is just like, I'm honestly kind of surprised this didn't make it into the movie because it's just such a perfect example of how Tommy just did not understand the politics of Hollywood. So essentially, Dragon, Tommy hired another guy to be Mark just to keep up the illusion that Greg wasn't going to be Mark. He could have this big, like, surprise moment on the first day.
Oh my God! He basically pulled an intentional Eric Stoltz. Oh yes.
God! And so imagine, Dragon. Imagine like Tommy and Greg are driving to the set on the first day, and Greg is supposed to be the script supervisor. That's why they had to bring in Sandy Schultz, the Seth Rogen's character, as the script supervisor.
And this whole time, Tommy's like driving like, he's just all excited. He's like, I can't wait to tell Greg.
Right. And so he tells Greg, he's like, Greg, you're gonna be Mark. And then Mark's like, no, wait a minute, we have this other guy. And then, screw that other guy. That other guy'll be fine. He Mickey Mouse. You're Mark.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, I just love when he says no Mickey Mouse stuff. And so, Dragon, so here's the fascinating, this is like definitely like one of the big differences between the way that the movie depicts the first day of shooting and the way the first day of shooting actually went down. There was no shooting on the first day of shooting, Dragon. The first day of shooting was a giant like PR nightmare regarding this actor being fired on the spot. Like half the cast and crew basically wanting to walk out in solidarity.
Oh God.
Yeah, Greg like basically trying to, rally them back in. Tommy throwing a bitch fit about it the whole time. Like, these people are professionals. This is my movie. That was the first day, Dragon. Because essentially the movie makes it seem like, all right, this might be a little weird, but hey, that was a good first take,
Well, Tiki, I get why they cut that. They had to cut that so they would be, again, whether it happened in real life or not, that's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. Those people would stick around for that movie if they all had that much of a reaction to, if they all had that reaction to it, they would have to change that.
Right, right.
I mean, I get exactly why they cut that, but it's mind-blowing. That's actually how it went down.
And like I said, it just goes to show that Tommy is just on another planet with this kind of stuff.
Right.
He really thought he was just like doing like the best, nicest thing ever for Greg by throwing him into the middle of this like, really tense situation.
I will say this though, that I this is fascinating. I get where Tommy's coming from. That he's trying to spring like a surprise on his buddy there, but without realizing the consequences. Though, and again, it's endearing, but at the same time, very reckless and stupid.
Right.
So again, that is interesting. It would have been nice to see that be played, but again, it's the aftermath would be hard to. It would be too hard to bounce back from.
I hear you.
But before, I'm sorry, real quick, because we're working on some cameos here. We kind of glazed over this. We got to talk about one of our favorites here, the great Bob Odenkirk.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, he's great.
And I love this too. And Tiki, I would factor this into yet another element of what makes The Room here, because that's when Tommy's on the downward spiral. Basically he is he's critiqued by the Stanislavski of acting teachers. Basically, Odenkirk just kind of says, "Hey, buddy, I'm gonna give you some free advice here. I could see you, as the villain, as the monster, as Dracula, Frankenstein. I don't want to be Frankenstein."
Yeah, and you're right, Drake, and I love how Odenkirk is like he's genuinely like looking out for Tommy and giving Tommy a piece of advice that could potentially be really helpful. Because like say what you will about the man, he does have a unique air about him.
Essentially, what he's saying is he should be a character actor, and
right?
Yes,
right.
Tommy was so very well in life, but he didn't, and that's the thing. Again, it's the analogy I just laid out before. He's a square block trying to fit into a round hole.
Quite frankly, like Tommy Wiseau is so in his own world that like he could never be a character actor. Like the more Tommy Wiseau thinks he's playing a character, well, let's just say, let's use this movie, the end, the post credits. Let's get back to Tommy Wiseau thinking he's playing a character later. Because I feel like the post credits is just a great top on that.
Well, of course. I mean, the story with that post credits.
Yes. I know that's what I want to get into.
All right. We'll get there. Okay. Okay. But what I'm saying to you, and the making of The Room just kind of gets back on point, is that the point is like he just wanted to prove that he is he's a hero. That's why he put himself in the lead role. That's why he's trying to still be in that square peg. He's like even if he has to build the square hole himself, he's gonna do it. Right. I am hero. You're all villains. You're laughing at me. That's again we established that Tommy Wiseau hates people laughing at him. In real life, I found this out about him. I assume you know this. Tommy Wiseau has a profound fear of something very ridiculous.
Oh God.
He has it's nowhere in the movie. It's ridiculous.
Is it pirates?
That'd be hysterical, but no. And folks, I swear to God, I swear on like a little tiny Bible. I'm not making this up. Only a pocket-sized Bible. I'm not making this up. He's afraid of farts.
Oh God!
I swear, I'm not making it up. He that's why he won't valet park his car.
Mm-hmm.
He won't let valets in his car because he's afraid people are gonna, kind of defile the seat.
Mm-hmm.
So he's profoundly afraid of that, along with laughter in this movie. That little fun fact. Okay. Yes.
So we get into like the first shot, Dragon, and this is a story unto itself with the Chris R actor. I mean, what you see is essentially what you get, Dragon, and I'm so glad they included this in the movie because Chris R., the actor who played Chris R., was by far the most dedicated actor on that whole set. As you could see, like, he was just, like, you know, like, breaking mirrors and just, like, swearing up a storm behind the scenes trying to get into character.
Tell me this, Tiki. Was he an actual hoodlum, or was he just really...
No, he's a very, very normal guy. That's the funny thing.
And that Chris R. is a fantastic actor.
Dragon, like, the one thing because I'm sure you noticed this, the fact that, you know, the opening scene, they shot the Chris R. and Denny confrontation in the alley, and then, you know, in the movie, it's on the rooftop, and so they had to actually get that actor to come back in, and he was thrilled. He was like, oh, hell yeah, I love doing Chris R.
Yeah, I'm sure Josh Hutchinson was terrified.
Right.
I gotta tell you, I've never seen Zac Efron intimidating, so...
Seriously, I cannot emphasize enough how much like Josh Hutcherson. Like I want a Denny movie just to get more of Josh Hutcherson as Denny.
Again, Tiki's got his own. He's the star in a TV series on Hulu. You can watch all of him all you want in there. Anyway, yes. So yeah, of course we go basically in Act 2. We go through things like, you know, the casting. Again, Greg's the line producer turned actor. It's kind of where we're at with him. The production begins, and I like the out of 40 days device. I love that.
I did too. Because again, like you were saying, Dragon, at first it seems like kind of like an, you know, like a cliche biopic thing to do. Like, all right, we gotta have the counter for the production days, but then there's a reason why they have it.
Yes, and I thought it was brilliant. Like, you never see that sort of thing. It was great. And again, we have all this crazy stuff that is happening on day one instead of the whole, like, you know, the whole surprise that goes on. Surprise, Mark! You're Mark.
Or Dragon, as Romero would like to say, surprise.
Oh god, there's a tangent I want to go on, but I'm not.
Oh, I know the tangent, but just don't.
Anyway, so
hi, Norma.
No, that wasn't it. I was just gonna have, like, I have a very special guest for everyone. I allowed them to use my private bathroom.
Wow, you're so sexy, Norma.
Oh god, no, don't want Tiki.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm crossing the line.
Come on, man.
I'm crossing a line here.
Oh, that's not right. Now I feel. Now you just made it dirty. So the point is, we have crazy stuff on day one. You have the private bathroom. We have, which is ridiculous. I love it. Just Seth Rogen's director Gary recently pointed out, like, you know, there's your bathroom inside the place. Which I love how we got the location. By the way, I love that we have like Burns and Sawyer, the little production company. They basically saw him as an easy mark to buy. Unnecessarily buy equipment instead of renting and just doing all the, like, picking between 35mm and digital. You got both.
Here's the thing, that was absolutely true. Like, they were absolutely, like, using this guy, but at the same time, they were using, he was using their production space, and they were very skeptical about this movie he was making, needless to say. And so they were a little bit more antagonistic about the whole production than you saw in the movie, where in the movie they basically just let him go nuts with it.
But I like how it plays in the movie, though, D. They're matches for his ego's fire right there. Like, hey, now he has more clout that, hey, look, we're shooting in studio.
Right.
Studio, and, you know, it's my movie. Yeah, all that. So it's just feeding the ego fire. Let's see. I love we address how amazing it is that the check's clearing. So I like we're addressing the money. That we're addressing that the money is a real thing. That he does actually have this money somehow. We don't know where it's coming from. But, I mean,
to this day in 2017, we still don't know.
And you will never know.
Oh, God.
Never, ever, ever, Greg. Anyway,
I invent Auto Pops.
I actually rule Latveria.
Oh, God.
I killed Reed Richards and ate his son. Anyway.
Okay.
So, yes, let's see. So the camera. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. T, this is great. We have to have this. I love how the camera rolls on these little moments between Greg and Tommy. So basically, like, you know, when Greg's very much, he'll admit that, you know, he's nervous on the first day. Tommy, he is nervous, but he's not acknowledging. Of course, he's forgetting lines here and there. And, with the Oh Hi Mark scene, which, of course, is a hugely important scene. And, of course, we got a little taste of with the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
What I love is that we see that, and I like I can't recall who it is. You might be able to clarify. is it Tommy's guy who's recording this, or is it or is it the just the film crews kind of recording?
No, it's Tommy's guy specifically.
Yeah, it makes it more interesting to you. That's what I was hoping.
And so essentially the whole thing with this is like it pretty much plays out how we saw in the movie, is that Tommy's guy was basically like a thinly veiled excuse to spy on the set with the whole like making of the room thing.
But also, here's my read on it. Tell me if you think this is crazy or not. I like to think that, you know, Tommy's guy is basically, this is what's fueling the script and like, you know, the additional rewrites and stuff of the script, and basically the movie's content are these scenes that are being filmed between him.
Right, which makes it a very meta movie. You're right, yes, because and here's the thing, Dragon. Of course, one of the things that this movie didn't really hit on is the fact that actors were kind of like constantly coming and going, and you know, people were being replaced, and that's another thing that sort of led to like just how much in fluctuation the room was.
And something to consider, I'm going to throw this out there, is that perhaps, I'm just reading into it here, the whole just excuse of making the movie, this is Tommy Wiseau just finding an excuse to stay in LA with his friend and just going to do a movie.
Oh, I could absolutely see that. Yeah, you're right, because
like he'd just be taking these additionally just as like almost like a home movie, like him and his buddy making a film, just kind of using his mementos while he's spying on everyone else. But that's why, you know, he probably told the guy, "Hey, focus on me and Greg if we're getting into it."
Sure.
You know.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Amber, we stop at well. Anything else you want to say in the old Highmark scene? Because, you know, it's I love Greg.
Honestly, I think the teaser. I think it was a really good idea to use that as the teaser trailer, because it doesn't really spoil anything about the actual movie, but it's an iconic part of the. You know, it's iconic part of the original, and it's, you know, and it's just a good way, like, even if you haven't seen The Room, you've probably at least heard the Oh Hi Mark meme. So it's kind of like a good way to sort of like set the bar of like, oh, wait, that's what this movie is? Huh? Okay, I'm intrigued.
I forget if this was in the teaser, and I probably was, but I just like seeing it again in the movie. I mean, I love the little Greg assisting with the bottle, giving him the bottle, and giving him the
No. That was not in the teaser. That's the one thing they added that wasn't in the teaser. But yeah, you're right. That was a good moment.
I really again.
Actually, I'm pretty sure like one of the things that that was in the teaser that wasn't in the actual movie was Greg just kind of being supportive of the, you know, off from the sidelines, like, "You're doing great, man. We'll get there."
That's what I'm saying. I like those little. Again, I'm liking how we're continuing that friendship with these little moments there. Like, look at the shot we had before. So he's holding on to that water bottle. You know, it's as I presume this is like after he walked off after getting the water bottle. It's like, hey, I'm going to use this. It's nice.
I just love. I was like, oh, why you just say that before, Greg?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
What I love about Wiseau, Dragon, is that Wiseau's just like he's always finding a reason to like blame someone else or like throw it on to someone else.
Exactly, but he's doing like a kind of like a complimentary manner
right.
with him there. It's like the ultimate backhanded compliment almost. It's like, thank you. Why didn't you tell me this before?
God.
It's like, and of course we're doing a roof, basically saying, hey, let's do like one of our genuine heartfelt rooftop scenes on this fake rooftop. Which I don't know why we're not doing on the actual rooftop. Let's just do it anyway. Okay, so basically after Highmark, Tiki, tell us about Amber. How accurate is Amber?
I mean, to tell you the truth, Amber has about as much of a presence in the book as she does in the movie.
That's fair.
Which is basically from time to time, Greg will be like, "Oh yeah, and I was dating Amber."
What about the move? I mean, was the move an actual plot element, or?
Well, yes, and honestly, I think the thing with the move is that the move, I feel, was kind of like the movie's way of sort of getting Tommy's possessive quality over Greg into a single scene.
Yeah,
because I mean, he did move in with Amber, and yeah, it was a big deal for Tommy, and it was a kind of a sticking point. Like, I also feel like that was you know, that was sort of a moment where Greg was just sort of like, hello.
Yeah, I'm here, T, but I think the image is gone.
Browser's just suddenly deciding to crash, so if you can't hear me, I'm sorry.
But no, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's just my web browser's just like, we're sorry, Firefox is not responding.
All right, well, again, just so you know, the image is kind of all black right now.
Yeah, so well, I'm not concerned about the image.
Okay, I was
hear me.
Okay, well, I can hear you, so we're good. Okay, anyway, so you were saying, so Amber did move in. It was a big event.
Well, like I said, it was kind of the point where Greg was like, okay, holy crap, this guy really is trying to take control of my life.
Right.
Because it literally makes no difference. Like, you know, because Tommy was acting like it was a betrayal of the movie. You know, like, but we do this big movie together, Greg. as Greg very logically pointed out, like Tommy, like we can, like we could still do the movie. This.
All right. He'll be back momentarily, folks. Anyway. Yeah, so that's exactly what Tiki's hitting upon. It's kind of it's the point that Tommy is now alone. This is his life's work. It's between his life's work and his life. It's kind of that's where we get to see kind of the dangerous fine line between those things. You always want to divide between your fictional life and the real life, and that's what Tommy is doing in this movie. Is really dangerous. Is that he's basically telling his life story, but he's viewing it as a fictional take on it. So again, it's unclear how we got to assume Tommy's not aware of this. But then again, he's typing certain things up, and he when he was writing the script, and again, we know his guy is filming the scenes between him and Greg, and of course, there's a lot of Mark and Greg, and again, this betrayal might be fueling the betrayal within the story, and again, just kind of like a third wheel of the girlfriend, a girl coming between two friends, which we see unfold here, and again, chronologically, it might not match up exactly, so that's why I have some conjecture here, but you see what I'm saying, folks. Anyways, they're also assigned to discuss here is that regardless, there is that jealousy between Tommy and Greg, and that Tommy wants to be Greg, wants to kind of have the boyish good looks, he wants to have the opportunities that Greg has. At the same time, Tommy, in a possessive way, wants to kind of drag Greg down to his level, so basically they can almost kind of feed off of each other and just kind of be almost like a parasitic, symbiotic relationship here. Maybe I don't think it's probably bad now. Just say symbiotic. They need each other. That's kind of what he's indoctrinated in Greg. That he feels good when he's around Greg. It's like here's someone I can kind of educate in my ways, someone who we can go places together. We come from a similar place. I have a friend where no one else gets me. Greg kind of gets me here, and the fact that Greg's not going to be around him 24/7. This is a change that it's a change that is outside of Tommy's control, which that really does bother Tommy, because what Tommy is experiencing on this film is the fact that he is he has autonomy. Again, he's the production company. He is everything. He can do everything, but he can't control Greg here. And there's a sadness that Franco conveys that is interesting. And also, some people have read into a bit of a romantic undercurrent, which I will say there is an argument for it being there. I would say it's more friendship than that. But honestly, I'm sure if a student saw it a second time, there might be something there. But we focus on like the hand shots and just the shots of just like Tommy feeling very betrayed. And again, it's all those layers that I think Franco's portraying without dialogue, I think speak volumes. Of course, he comes out, we have a very over the top again. Why so S? He was kicking over mailboxes. I have no idea if that happened in real life or not, because I imagine it hurt like the Dickens. But then again, he was a big guy, kind of monstrous. But anyway, point is, it looks. It's building that sense of pity you have for Lyso, even though he's behaving like a petulant child, and that's definitely going to come through in the low points during the production, where basically Tommy he's acting out the fact that his buddy is no longer with him, and I think Tommy honestly, Greg gave him a taste at somewhat of a normal life. It's an antisocial guy being able to kind of live a false normal life on his own terms, and without Greg in the mix, it's him alone with his own kind of failings, as he sees when he's reviewing the footage that his guy has acquired on the set. His footage of everyone kind of talking about him, laughing at him, kind of questioning his sanity, all that stuff. It basically, so Tommy is yet again alone and facing all his failures, which is kind of towards that earlier low point and inciting incident where Tommy is just kind of pondering, maybe I should call it quits. Maybe I'm not cut out for LA. So again, it's like that kind of what's fueling Tommy's fire and fueling him to overcompensate the next day. And in a ways, fictionally, he's kind of competing with the relationship that Greg is having at the same time. Yeah, it's the fact that someone likes Greg where no one likes Tommy, so there's a bit of jealousy on that level too. So the only way Tommy can have people like him is if he forces that. So let's go to the belly button sex scene. we have Lisa. So Lisa, again, wonderfully, I think accurately portrayed. Very accurately portrayed by Ari Grainer. Oh, I'm saying that right. You're playing Julia Daniel, who played Lisa in the movie. Ordinarily, you have an intimate scene like this on a closed set. Of course, not so much in the case of Tommy Wiseau. And I think this scene is